Hello and welcome everyone. Today I am here to interview the beautiful Rebecca Campbell. This is all part of my detox summit and the lead up to the release of my own book, Living a Life Less Toxic. I'm Faith Cantor and I am your host. I just really want to thank Rebecca for taking the time out of her really busy schedule at the moment to come and speak to us. So thank you for joining us, Rebecca.
My pleasure, Faith. I'm so excited and well done on the book. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you. Rebecca does quite a few different things. You're a spiritual mentor or mentor. I never know quite how you pronounce that. You do that anyway, and you're a writer. You've been publishing quite a few magazines and things, haven't you? And you're now an author of the up-and-coming book, Light is the New Black. Is that right?
It is, and I've got a copy right here. I got it last week.
Oh,
I know that you will appreciate how exciting it is. You've just been showing me your new copy. It's so weird.
Hold them up together.
Woo! And what did you do when you first got it?
I was a bit shocked, I think. You know, after all the months, because you finished writing a book so far, like months and months previously, and there's all the tweaking and stuff. But when it actually happens, you're a bit like, oh, it's here. Is that how it felt for you?
Right? It's like birth. It's like, oh my God, the baby's here.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like your baby.
Yeah, it is. But I kept on like having mine on my desk and just kind of looking at it, and I pick it up and kind of smell it because I just always imagined what it would smell like. So anyway,
oh, it is super exciting. So yeah. We'll talk more about your book at the end because obviously it would be fabulous if loads of people went out and bought it because I've already pre-ordered mine.
Oh,
so I'm waiting. But really I wanted to talk to you because I think a lot of people think when you talk about detoxing and, you know, healthy living and stuff, that it's all just about what you're putting into your body, sort of the food and drink and things like that. But it's so much more. And what you do and what I do would, I guess, appear to a lot of people not to be similar in a lot of ways because you're sort of helping people sort of bring the light into their life and sort of really get in harmony with themselves and balance and understand sort of what lights them up. That's sort of your message, isn't it? Mm. Yeah. And I'm sort of this detox person, which seem very different, I think. But actually, they cross over quite a lot, and I think that's the beauty of sort of anyone sort of on the spiritual path and stuff. There's a lot of crossover, and one of the things that really made me realise that is a newsletter you sent out a few weeks ago, and it was really about how to raise your vibration, which I know a lot of people on the spiritual path are trying to do. And it struck me that a lot of the things that you're saying that raise your vibration are actually the same things that I'm saying help to detox body and mind. So there's this crossover with them. And do you want to sort of explain to people that haven't read your newsletter and not understand perhaps what you're about or who you are, a bit about yourself and what you're doing?
Sure, yeah. So I'm an intuitive and spiritual mentor, as you said, and I think a writer first and foremost. And my personal mission is to help raise the vibration of the planet, which I know is yours as well, right? And like you say, it's just, I think it's really to do with our personal journey, which is what our message is in our vehicle. But I'd say at the crux of everything, so if I was to solidify what I believe in, it's about like actually aligning your life. Right? Which is like, if you kind of using the toxic terminology, it's like getting rid of the toxic stuff so that you're completely in alignment with who you are and who you came here to be. And so I say, follow what lights you up and you will light up the world, like effortlessly, right? But, you know, sometimes, you know, as society is, and I can, so like, probably like about 5 years ago, my life was not completely aligned. Like there was, and I think this is what's happening right now, where it's almost like anything inauthentic is becoming harder and harder to hold on to. And so there's things that like aren't quite aligned to us, which might be a little bit toxic, whether it's the food or the relationship or the job. The thing that isn't congruent with who we are and who we came here to be is just becoming harder to cling on to. And so for me personally, I used to be in advertising, so I'd always been fascinated by the journey of the soul since I was very young, but I was scared. I was like, I call it an undercover light worker, because I was afraid that everyone would think I was weird to be talking about this journey of the soul, which I think there's so many people in the spiritual community who like have that fear, right? And so I ended up going into advertising and had a great career as a creative director in advertising, and used a lot of my gifts like creativity and, you know, understanding people and stuff. But increasingly so as the years went on, I knew that career no longer fit my soul. And it was really hard to let go of it, because the further I got into it, the more I'd put into it, and I just didn't want to. It was like I'd be throwing all of that away, you know, the network and all of that. At the same time, it was the relationship, which again I knew wasn't in my best interest, but it's like I'd invested so many years, and you know, and then I'm using things like say coffee and carbs, pizza, love that. Nothing wrong with those things, but like particularly coffee, the way I was using coffee, and I'm not saying people shouldn't drink coffee because it's one of my passions in life, but for me, I was using coffee as a way to stay in a job that didn't serve me, right? To work the long hours, because my life wasn't filling me up. My life wasn't actually raising my vibration effortlessly. And so for me, it was like, and you know, so many of my clients, I'm sure you will kind of relate to this. It's like when we're clinging to these things that aren't actually in alignment with who we are, then sometimes we do find ourselves clinging to things like coffee or alcohol or food or whatever, or relationships in order to cope. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think what I help people with now is helping them really come back home to what their soul is calling them towards. I say follow your intuition, especially when it's scary and especially when it makes no sense, because often I find that actually the gifts that we have to share and the joy that we're here to experience are actually on the other side of the fear. So often we have to face that fear, which is terrifying sometimes. But once we kind of move through it, then, you know, the things can fall away that aren't actually in alignment to who we are.
Yeah, yeah. So it's about listening to yourself, isn't it? Sort of your inner self and sort of really...
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not easy. Particularly because it's like, you know, so many of us are talking about follow your intuition and listen to that little voice. But I know when your life is so busy, it's really hard to know which is the voice of the soul and which is the voice of the ego in the head, right? Particularly when you're busy, particularly when you're using other, you know, like whether it's coffee, alcohol, whatever, to kind of survive, and you're not actually in tune. And so I feel like the most important thing, if you're someone who's going, oh, how do I know what that inner voice is? And I don't know, it's confusing. I think the only way to really get that clarity is to be really disciplined with a daily spiritual practice, which I believe the best practice is meditation. Yeah. But it doesn't have to be like 3 hours a day. Like I only do 10 minutes a day of meditation, because when I stick to that, and I've stuck to that for several years now, because it's only 10 minutes, there is no excuse not to do it. If for some reason, like, you know, you wake up late or you're hungover or something like that, and you've got an early call or something, and if I've missed my meditation in the morning, and I'll always make sure I do it by bedtime, but those days when I can't, I haven't done it yet, I haven't showed up to my daily practice, they're the ones where I can't hear my inner voice, and they're the ones where I'm in a crappy mood.
So do it sooner rather than later then.
Yeah, and in a disciplined way. Like, it's like making it non-negotiable. I'm a big believer in non-negotiable spiritual practice, because I really feel, I wonder how you feel about this, but I feel that for pretty much all of us, it's the days when we don't want to show up to spiritual practice are the ones that we actually need it the most.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's true.
Yeah, and so if you don't have that discipline, like, it's all great if you're like, oh, I'm in a great mood today, I'm going to do some journaling and I'm going to do some meditation and collaging or whatever it is. And it's like, you know, I've been in this pattern, like, in my past, where it'd be like, great, I'd spend the whole weekend doing a course, and then I'd get really busy at work or whatever, and it'd be, I might go a month without showing up, and the decline would be palpable, really. Yeah. So, yeah, I think, yeah, I really feel like, particularly when it comes to raising your vibration, the daily practice of showing up to whatever spiritual practice serves you is like immeasurable. Yeah.
And also not seeing it as a chore, you know, when you see it as a chore, and I've done this myself, it's like when you are in a bad space, mm-hmm. perhaps when you haven't meditated for a few days or something, mm-hmm. and you go, that's it, I'm going to meditate, and you sit yourself down like in the chair and you're like, right, and that's not really going to work for you, is it?
Oh, it's so true. I'm a bit of a, like, I used to kind of like be a bit of a overachiever, and then I'd do nothing. So I'd be like, I feel like, oh, I need to exercise and I need to do an hour's meditation, and then I need to do journaling, and then I need to do this. And it was just like I needed another life to do the spiritual practice. Yeah. And so, and also for me with meditation, a lot of meditation, I like the ones where it's just stilling the mind. For me, that's like, it didn't really serve me. It wasn't until I found a meditation called sourcing, which is focusing on really allowing the light of the universe to fill yourself up. So literally allowing the light to flow through you. So it's like you're becoming, like, moving into flow with the universe, and you just literally just breathe and receive. That's it. Until I found that, I found it really hard to be disciplined with my spiritual practice, because it felt like a chore. And so, I mean, if anyone wants, I've got a free meditation. I can give you the link for that, for the sourcing meditation, for everyone on the call if you want. But yeah, it's just literally 10 minutes every day. You don't need to do more than that, but give it a go. And if that doesn't fit right, then wait till you find the one that does. But yeah, you don't have to do all of them. It's just finding the thing that really serves you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Not everything works for everyone, does it? We're all individuals. We're all on our own path, at our own stage and things. And I think we can get quite caught up in sort of, well, they're doing yoga 5 times a week and this, that, and the other, and yeah. I must have to do that, and I should get well. And then when you don't, you get quite disappointed. So it's about sort of finding what works for you, and again, listening to yourself to see what works for you, isn't it?
Totally. I had a really cool experience of that recently, and because when I was younger, I used to be like really sporty and good at sport and stuff, but as an adult, I've been like, it's not like I exercise. I really enjoy walking in nature and all of that. But when it comes to going to the gym, I just can't bring myself to do it. And up until recently, I've been really hard on myself for that, where it's been like, oh, why can't you go to yoga at 5 a.m.? And I just don't want to. Like, at the end of the day, I just don't want to. And then, so I was talking to my fiance, and, you know, he's like, you know, well, why don't you practice what you preach about what lights you up? I'm like, oh yeah, you know, very good advice. But for exercise, I had a bit of a block. And when I went through that point of inquiry, okay, well, what kind of physical movement lights me up? I discovered dancing has always lit me up. And so I've incorporated that back into my life now. And so I think that process of just like, okay, well, for now, if I do want to do spiritual practice, or I want to do exercise, or I want to eat healthy, out of all these things, what is it that will light me up the most?
Yeah.
Because the moment we, you know, I'm not a good dieter at all. It's like, I don't know about you, but it's like, I you know, when you're restricting yourself, it's kind of like it dampens your spirit and kind of turns down your light. So if you kind of, for me, the best question I ask myself is, okay, which of these two will light me up the most? And I'll go with the thing that'll light me up the most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. Definitely. And you said about walking in nature. I mean, that's one of the things that I recommend as well. Is you know, getting out in nature, taking your shoes off, or hugging a tree. That really does work. And you know, connecting with sort of Mother Nature, because that's where we're born from, and we're so disconnected these days, aren't we? We sit in front of our computers, as we are now, and it actually affects our health, our mental and physical health. But just getting out in nature, you know, walking. I think you say you walk in one of your local parks or something, don't you? It has such an effect on body and mind. You can feel it healing you, can't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm from Sydney, Australia, and so I grew up with nature, but for me it was the beach. And it took me living in London for about 5 years to realise how important nature was, and how, because I wasn't from London, how I just took nature for granted and didn't notice how it wasn't in my life.
Yeah.
When I noticed that, I then discovered London parks and UK parks. You guys do parks so amazingly. It's amazing. And so, yeah, each morning I go walking in nature because it is what lights me up. And, you know, I think nature talks to us. It like mirrors back at us. Whereas, you know, and how can you not be inspired? Like at the moment, yesterday I went walking in, I live, a park near where I live, and all the little ducklings are out. It can't not soften your heart or open your heart. It's beautiful. Are you a park walker, or what do you do?
I live not far from sort of the hills and stuff around Edinburgh, so I'm quite lucky that I've got dogs as well, so even if I don't want to walk in the rain, I have to. But yeah, I'm very lucky up here with sort of the hills, and it's not far to the Cairngorms and the mountains and things. So
how wonderful!
It was part of my own healing journey. Actually, nature was, because with my own I had ME and chronic fatigue, and well, they're the same thing, and I realised that one of the things I was doing in my busy life before getting ill was not noticing. You know, you just rush from one thing to another and you just don't notice what's around you. And when I got ill, it forced me to notice, you know, nature. It forced me to watch the birds and the squirrels and, you know, and the buds opening and stuff like that. And it was really quite fundamental in my recovery, and I know it is in quite a lot of people's, because we do become quite disconnected with nature, and it does have an effect on us, on our. It affects our own electromagnetic field. So just being out in nature grounds us again, much the same as meditating and things like that.
Yeah, and if you can do the two together, even better.
Yeah, I mean, mindful walking's just beautiful.
Oh, yeah. One of my favourite outdoor intuitive exercises is to go to like a big open space. It can be a park or mountains, whatever. And just imagine yourself like with a magnet within you, and just walk wherever the magnet is pulling you. And so it might be towards the ducks, and then you just like hang out with the ducks, and then it might be over a bridge, and so it's like you're not walking with any purpose. It's so true what you were saying about how, you know, in these days everything's so fast, and so it's like you're forced to kind of like do things with a purpose. And I was like the biggest person of that. Like, I used to do that. I was just like, okay, well, is this purposeful, what I'm about to do? And so that was a really amazing untraining for me, where it was just like, okay, I've got 20 minutes and I'm just going to walk aimlessly. No purpose. It's amazing.
Yeah, very healing. And it's the whole sort of self-care and kindness to yourself, isn't it? Just disconnecting with everything else, all that stuff.
Yes.
Just being with you. Yeah.
Yeah, but then also, like, sometimes it's through being unproductive that you can be the most productive. You know, that's when the ideas come. That's where, like, when your left and right brain can talk to each other, right? Rather than just being in the left constantly. Yeah. And our intuition, when we allow it, like, our intuition comes to life and our ideas come through and the intuitive ahas come through when we're playing. And the definition of play really is to do things with no attachment to the outcome.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when we were kids, we'd do that all the time. We just, like, there was no point in the play. It was just play. Yeah.
And then you'd draw all these beautiful pictures. Well, you thought they were beautiful. Pictures and stuff. Yeah. We've become very disconnected with the sort of the fun side of things, haven't we? Yeah. And what else would you sort of recommend? What else is that you do that sort of is helping to open you up, to crack you open or light you up, or whichever phrase, which is also has sort of at the same time some sort of detoxing effect, would you say, on spirit, body, mind? I mean, I guess they do by default anyway, but what else do you do that you would recommend to listeners that they could do?
I would so sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it was a bit jumbled, wasn't it? It was just sort of speaking as I was thinking. Just what are some of the other things that you do maybe in your daily, weekly or even a monthly practice that really sort of helps to light you up, which is obviously what you're about, but it's also sort of detoxing maybe for body or mind or home or...
So I think one thing that is surprisingly powerful is to ask yourself seriously, what does light you up, right? I'm not talking about like, it's this big job or it's like being an author. It's not that. It's the little things. What little things light you up? And yeah, it could be nature, or it could be the sunshine, or it could be Skyping a friend. It's just actually getting really clear, and maybe everyone on the call can do this, like get a piece of paper and write up the top what lights me up and number 1 to 10 and just jot it down. Just intuitively answer. You don't need to think about it. And don't make it too big, like literally make it like it could be surrounding my home in candles, taking an aromatherapy bath, walking with my dog. It could be anything. But so when I asked myself that question, what came through for me was so it was a couple of things. It was like, I love beauty and I love nature. And then specifically, I love flowers, fresh cut flowers. I just adore them. But I never bought them for myself. I never surrounded my house in them because I had this weird thing in my head, like so many of us do, going, you can't buy yourself flowers. And I just want to say bullshit. So I started at that point just buying myself a bunch of flowers every week. I gave myself a £20 budget where I'd go out to the shop, and I still resisted against it. I'd be like, I'll just buy the cheap ones. And then I'd train myself to go, okay, no, I'm going to ask myself, out of all these flowers here, which one would light up my spirit, my soul, open my heart the most? And I'd get them. Mm-hmm. And that simple tool was life-changing for me. If you look at, I don't know if you can see my house here. Look at all these flowers. Like, my house is surrounded with flowers now. That's my messy couch. It's just surrounded. It never used to be. When I look at a flower, I've got this beautiful one here. When I look at a flower, it inspires me. I'll sound like a crazy flower lady, but flowers inspire me more than anything, right? I look at these flowers, my heart opens, right? If I'm having a shit day, I'll look at them and I'll be like, oh, you're so beautiful. The way they close at night and then open again, it's amazing. I've just planted my whole garden with tulips and peonies and stuff, and just watching them open encourages my heart to open as well. And I think I mentioned this at my talk at Ignite, where I started buying myself flowers, and then the flowers inspired me to start writing. And so I would just do little notes, and then more words would come, and I'd write more and more and more, and it turned into my instant guidance oracle on my website, and then that turned into my blog, and then that turned into a book proposal to Hay House. And then I ended up showing up to my writing a little bit more, so maybe an extra hour a day. And as I literally clicked file save on my manuscript, like literally it was finished, I looked up and I was in right in the center of Regent's Park Rose Garden, and I realized how I'd literally written the whole book in that rose garden. Like I'd write a chapter, and then I might go get a tea or something, and then I'd go sit down on a different park bench and I'd write another chapter. And it was like nature was inspiring me, and I so know how much you get that.
Yeah.
And it was just such a humbling experience to look up after I'd finished my book and just see where I was, because actually that simple act of asking myself what lit me up and getting flowers resulted in a book.
Yeah.
I couldn't have possibly painted that picture, but I wouldn't have got there had I not actually asked myself what lit me up. So it wasn't this process of writing a book, like, yeah, I was disciplined, and I know you know what it takes to write a book. It's not like you just like, oh yeah. But if that process of getting there is joyful, it's effortless because you want to show up to it. And so instead, with this kind of thought of like detoxing your life, I'd invite people to ask themselves, okay, what in my life is in alignment with who I am and who I'm here to be, and what is not?
Yeah.
And be willing to let go of the what is not. It takes baby steps, right?
Yeah.
And then the way to bring in the alignment is actually to follow the things that light you up without having an attachment to the outcome. I didn't surround myself with flowers to get anywhere. I just did it because it made me feel good.
Yeah.
And we've all got that, inner compass within us, which is just like, that's the direction.
Yeah.
That's the way to go. Yeah. Don't you feel that?
Yeah, that's so true. And I think we know what those things are that aren't in alignment, because we feel they're draining on us. It might be draining on our energy or emotions or something, but they're a drain. You know what they are. Yeah,
and it's relationships.
Yeah.
They're the hardest ones to let go of, right? Then they say, I forget who said it. I always forget the guy who said it, but he said that we are the 5 people we spend the most time with. Like if you look at the 5 people you spend the most time with, that's who you are.
Yeah.
And so if those people were people who, and it's no blame here because we're all mirrors for each other, but as we grow, some people want to grow, some people don't want to grow. And as we grow, it comes to a point sometimes where, we need to let people in our life go as well. Doesn't mean it's like this big breakup, like sometimes it is, but, it's by clearing, allowing that space. And I so see you doing this with your work, like by clearing a space, it leaves space for the grace or the new experiences or the joy or the non-toxic to actually enter. But until you clear that out, it's like the power of a good spring clean, right? A declutter. Yeah.
Yeah,
it really does leave it empty. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not just people that are draining, it's actually spaces as well, can't it?
Oh.
If you're coming home and you're finding that you're just sitting in your front room, you just feel drained, or even sort of almost claustrophobic because there's just so much stuff. And it has a huge impact, not just on your home, but mentally on what you're doing, because it makes space, like you said, for new.
So true. And a couple of tips on that, which I use for, say, decluttering, is like, say I've got like this and this, two things I've just picked up, right? And they could be anything. It could be a photo frame or a t-shirt or whatever. It's like picking this up and I'm like, okay, does this light me up or does this drain me? And I'm like, oh, my grandma gave me this. I feel really good when I look at it. So that's a stayer. Whereas this is just an old, I don't need that. So that's a definite no. But it could be like a t-shirt from an ex-boyfriend and you're keeping it because it's sentimental. But really, when you're really honest with yourself, it makes you feel like crap because it makes you feel sad or angry or pissed off. And so asking yourself that question is pretty powerful. Another thing which I've just recently started to do, I often like use a sage stick, which is like, dried sage and burn that. But I was recently introduced to the concept of like mantras, like Kundalini chants and Kirtan chants. And I listen to that kind of music, that devotional music all the time. And someone mentioned to me that when they sage their house, what they do is they'll sage the house and then leave the window open just a little bit and then keep the mudras and the chants playing, because it's almost like those devotional songs have such a beautiful heart vibration. And so they'll leave it playing in the house and go out and do the shopping and come back. And I tried it the other day and boy, like you can really notice the vibrational shift. So maybe give that a go.
Yeah. Nice and simple things as well, aren't they? So
they're the best ones because it means we actually do them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's what I try to get over to people. It doesn't, all this sort of helping yourself, whether it's mind, body, food, spiritually or whatever, it doesn't have to be like this big sort of change in lifestyle or expense or anything. There's lots of little things we can do for ourselves that make a huge difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And doing it in a consistent way. That's definitely what I feel makes the big shifts. Just showing up to it.
And what feels right to you, not what feels right to your next door neighbour or your best friend or whoever's telling you should do whatever it is you should do. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it's just like, and it's kind of like, say, with this call or the next call you do or whatever, it's like, don't feel like you have to write down all the things that we've said. Mm-hmm. Just pick one thing that resonated and try that.
Yeah.
That'll be huge if you add one thing to your life rather than, it's like if I read a book, I'll always ask myself that because otherwise I'll just get overwhelmed by going, oh my God, there's so much here. And I'll forget it.
Yeah. You've given us some great advice. Thank you for that. So I just wanted to sort of finish on sort of a little bit about your book and what the viewers can expect from your book, which is coming out July the 6th. Yeah. So only a couple of months away now.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is it here. It's called Light is the New Black. And it's a guide to answering your soul's calling and working your light. It's a guidebook, and it's also, there's lots of poems in it. It's a practical guide for light workers, really, or anyone who is trying to, when I say light worker, it's like, it doesn't have to be this like weird term. It's like anyone who is consciously wanting to listen to their spirit and their soul versus their ego and create a life that's like really in harmony with the universe and that really like lights you up and fills you up. So yeah, it's got like my personal story and it's beautiful. Hay House done such a good job. And yeah, it's really what I love about it, because I'm like the world's slowest reader. I've intentionally made the chapters really small. So it's literally, you can open it up and it's like there'll be a prayer or a thing, and there's loads of practical tools. So That's what it is. So if you want to check it out, just head to lightisthenewblack.com. And yeah, you can pre-order it or order it or yeah, whatever. But yeah, hope it serves you.
And it's got lots of tips for sort of raising your vibration and things like that.
Loads of tips for raising your vibration, really creating a life that's completely in alignment, and how to let go of the things that aren't serving you, and you know, those toxic things in your life. Yeah.
Sounds beautiful. And if anyone wants to connect with you, how do they go about doing that?
Yeah, my website's probably best. It's RebeccaCampbell.me. So RebeccaCampbell.me. .com was taken. It's a very common name. And then yeah, I'm on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Like my handle's at Rebecca Thoughts. And yeah, just I'm all over the web, like you are.
Yeah, you have to be these days, don't you? Quite a few of the links will be below the video as well, so people can just click on those and go straight through to your website and things. And you did mention about sharing a sourcing.
Oh yeah. So if you want that, just go to my website. It's literally up the top. There's a banner which says Rebecca Campbell, and then below it, there is a call to action to sign up. And yeah, pop your email in there, and then you'll get that sent immediately.
Perfect.
So,
yeah. It's just a 10-minute meditation that sort of anyone can do.
Yeah, it's
no excuses.
Exactly. It's so easy and it's short.
And it's just such a simple step to sort of helping you be more present and not be in that stress cycle that I talk about quite a lot and things. So just one simple thing, if they didn't do anything else, that they could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, perfect. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out to speak to us today. It's been very enlightening.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, and nice to connect with you guys.
Great. Thank you then, and goodbye everyone.